So yeah. So let's look at this text question concerning technology. So Heidegger, first of all, he says that the essence of modern technology starts, man, upon the way that revealing through which the real everywhere more or less distinctly becomes standing reserve. That's a key word in this text, standing reserve. It's not just an object. The world doesn't just become object. It becomes resource. It becomes standing reserve for us to exploit. That's the way that we disclose the world as resource to be extracted. It's not just object, it's standing reserve. The forest is not trees, it's standing reserve. It's lumber to be used. So to start upon a way means to send in our ordinary language. We should call that sending that gathers, which first starts, man, upon a way of revealing destiny. That was what I was trying to refer to earlier, that being sort of sense is sort of like a distance, according to Heidegger. There's a good Danish word, it's called tilskibelse. It's the way that it sort of presents itself to us. It's the way that being, this is sort of like a play that being comes with. You know, oh, now I'm gonna take this shape. I'm gonna take this form. So it's not just that man has sort of done this horrible deed of separating ourselves from being. No, it's actually that something other than us being is showing itself in a particular way today, and it's sort of like what do you call it? It's sort of like an address to us. It addresses us in a particular way. So are we able to hear that address? That's the question. So when we consider the essence of technology, then we experience enframing still as a destiny of revealing. That's the way that being shows itself today. That's the way that it addresses us. It addresses us as enframing. In this way, we are already sojourning within the open space of destiny, a destiny that in no way confines us to a stultified compulsion to push on blindly with technology, or what comes to the same thing, to rebel helplessly against it and curse it as the work of the devil. Quite the contrary, when we once open ourselves expressly to the essence of technology, we find ourselves unexpectedly taking into a freeing claim. So it's not often, you know, Heidegger is portrayed as being against technology. It's not about being against technology and about like getting rid of all our technological devices and living in a shed in the forest. You know, that would also be a reactionary way of relating to technology and thus of like being caught actually. But what Heidegger is really inviting us to is to think deeply about the essence of technology. So this way that being shows itself today. How are we to respond to this? An image that came to me was I was traveling to Rome and I was in the airport, and I noticed like coming into security and kind of like, okay, I'm very sort of like captured by the pace and the sort of like what's going on around me, and I feel completely stuck in this kind of airport way of being, where I just need to go through security and through and all these, you know, things sort of like trying to capture my attention. But then there were a few moments where I was able to kind of like stop and just kind of like look around and sort of like relate to this enframing, this technological sort of machine that we're in the airport in a way that felt very freeing actually, when I was able to think about and to ponder like, okay, what's going on here, you know, how is it affecting me, how am I related? And I was able to kind of like stop up and look around and kind of like, wow, And there was just an example of kind of like, okay, I'm in the airport, I'm taking there, I'm not sort of like just I'm not rejecting technology, but I'm not completely like captured by it either, you know. Yeah, stopping up in the airport, that was not my image for this. And then, you know, we're taking into a freeing plane when we stop and we ponder, we think about the essence of technology. Yet the destiny reigns in the mode of enframing is the supreme danger. There is really a danger with technology today, according to Heidegger. This the supreme danger, he calls it. This danger attests itself to us in two ways. As soon as what is unconcealed no longer concern man even as an object, but does so rather exclusively as standing reserve, and man in the midst of objectlessness is nothing but the orderer of the standing reserve. Then he comes to the very brink of a precipitous fall. That is, he comes to the point where he himself will have to be taken as standing reserve. That's the danger. That is like, it's not only nature outside of us that becomes standing reserve, but we ourselves become standing reserve. I think that's something really scary, you know. And it's I thought about like, okay, where does this play out? And I think like I hope this doesn't sound too arrogant and too sort of prejudiced, but in so-called human resource departments and companies, you know, you have that word, you know, human resource, and just kind of like, okay, you know, what is that way of relating to ourselves and each other and to being that makes it possible for us to speak about, you know, human resource and to see man as a resource in this, you know, machine, and like where can this particularly man be most efficient in this, you know. And it's a bit paradoxical that in many of the human resource departments they actually use Jung's typology a lot, you know, in order to kind of like to make the best fit for the company, you know. And it's not that this is wrong necessarily. It's not that I'm against it. The danger is that it becomes the only way of revealing and of disclosing and of relating, you know. So there's nothing wrong with relating like this. The problem is that when this sort of strategic, calculative thinking becomes the only way of thinking and of relating, then that's the danger. And I think you see it even more sort of blatantly in war, in Gaza and Israel, for example, at the moment, or Russia, Ukraine, you know, then you know, suddenly, you know, people aren't people anymore. They are numbers, and you know that there's a sort of like a complete reduction of inherent worth that happens. So I guess in war times, also, you know, this is quite obvious example of how that happens. To the general also, you know, the army is a resource, you know, soldiers too. So it happens in a lot of ways, less or more subtle. But yeah, this is what Heidegger is really inviting us to think about. When are we reducing man and ourselves to the standing reserve? So meanwhile this happens, Heidegger says, precisely as the one so threatened exalts himself to the posture of Lord of the earth. This is paradoxical, because at the same time that this reduction happens, we sort of like we pride ourselves of being, masters of the world, while there's a complete reduction happen of our actual essence, complete forgetting of our essence, while at the same time we take pride in being, masters of of everything. Um, so this illusion gives rise in turn to one final delusion. It seems as though man everywhere and always only encounters himself. Like we lost the ability to be in touch with the mystery. So we only meet ourselves in our own, glasses, so to speak. So it seems as if we're only meeting ourselves. Yet in truth, however, precisely nowhere does man today any longer encounter himself, his essence. So this is again a great paradox, right? It seems we're only encountering ourselves, but actually when we think about our deeper essence, we're completely alienated. So man stands so decisively in attendance on the challenging force of enframing that he does not apprehend enframing as a claim, that he fails to see himself as the one spoken to, and hence also fails every way to hear in what respect he exists from out of his own essence, in the realm of an exhortation or address, and can thus never encounter only himself. This is again a bit technical, but I think so beautiful the way that Heidegger describes this. In framing as a claim, it speaks to us, it addresses us, and we need to hear that claim within the technological age. This is the sort of the deeper meaning of technology, the essence of technology, according to Heidegger. It's an address, it's a claim, it's something that challenges us into a new way of being and relating. And if we fail to hear that claim, then we're doomed. This play of like, okay, we're meeting only ourselves, but we're never really meeting ourselves. That's, that made me think of Narcissus, that this image in the lake that he's looking at, he's only looking at himself, but he doesn't realize that, that his deeper being is coming from a different place. I always thought, about that image of Narcissus looking at the lake. If he could just see the lake beneath the surface, then perhaps he would sort of be in a relationship with the mystery and with being, with the depth. But he's only seeing the surface. So he's only seeing himself, but he's actually not truly seeing the depth out of which the image arises. So, and again, like if we compare this to modern psychology, I guess the danger of modern ego psychology would also be to kind of like to stay stuck within a discourse of subjectivism and within a discourse of looking at man as a machine, as a mechanism, as standing reserved that needs to be fixed in order to get back into a productive way of being. So Bayo Akomolafe, he speaks about psychology as the policeman of capitalism. That's perhaps a bit like too radical, but I think there's something to that. Something is not working right in this mechanism. We go to the psychology, the psychologist in order to get fixed, so we could get back into being good citizens. And yeah, I love this poem by D.H. Lawrence called Healing, because it speaks into this kind of like, and he says, I'm not a mechanism, an assembly of various sections, And it's not because the mechanism is working wrong that I'm ill. I am ill because of wounds to the soul, to the deep emotional self, and the wounds to the soul take a long, long time. Only time can help, and patience, and a certain difficult repentance, long, difficult repentance, realization of life's mistakes, and the freeing oneself from the endless repetition of the mistake which mankind has at large chosen to sanctify. Yeah, I think wonderful poem. But yeah, that perhaps would be good to have, up at the door to my therapy. Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, so this is just like to sort of get an idea of okay, when is it that we are looking at ourselves only as standing reserve? And we do that when we get into this, oh, we need to, we need to fix what is wrong with us. And I think it saturates our ideas of healing today also. We speak so much about healing today. But when it comes from this area, like we need to fix what is broken, then we're in danger of sort of repeating this enframing way of relating to ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So final little bit. So the threat to man does not come in the first instance from the potentially lethal machines and apparatus of technology. The actual threat has already affected man and his essence. The rule of enframing threatens man with the possibility that it could be denied to him to enter into a more original revealing, hence to experience the call of a more primal truth. Thus, where enframing reigns, there is danger in the highest sense. So again, we need to recover this more original way of revealing a more primal truth. Not the truth of representing, but the truth of aletheia, he calls it. It's the truth of disclosing, of revealing, and of being in a disclosing relationship to being, and being open to the mystery, we called it before. And then Heidegger says, but where the danger is, grows the saving power also. This is not Heidegger, actually. This is a Hölderlin poem called Patmos. So there's this in technology, this is where the danger is greatest, but it's also where the saving power also grows. So he says, when we look into the ambiguous essence of technology, we behold the constellation, the stellar chorus of the mystery. A bit of astrology also there, but reminds me of the Jungian astrology with the stars. It's like the question concerning technology is the question concerning the constellation in which revealing and concealing, in which the coming to presence of truth comes to pass. So this is the destiny, which is described as a constellation. But what help is it to us to look into the constellation of truth? We look into the danger and see the growth of the saving power. Thus, now through this, we are not yet saved, but we are thereupon summoned to hope and the growing light of the saving power. How can this happen? And I think why I included that quote with the constellation and the stars, I think this is what astrology does for me, at least when it's best. Then it makes me sort of more apprehensive to these deeper archetypal structures that I'm not saying that this is true in a sort of ordinary sense, but there is this kind of like, okay, if I can look at what is going on today from this astrological perspective of seeing it as a constellation, a way that being constellates itself, a way that being distanced itself, then there is a sort of possibility that I can relate to it and I can reflect upon it from this more historical perspective and more broad perspective, where I'm not so swallowed up in it and by it, but I'm relating to it from a deeper, broader, or higher perspective. And I see that, astrologically, perhaps, this is a process, and a process which involves us, which involves me, and that is sort of like that is summoning me in a way. I guess that's a good word, summoning. So how can this happen? How can this, how can we be summoned to hope in the growing light of the saving power? It's a bit old-fashioned, this language, but yeah, I like it. How can this happen? So the coming to presence of technology threatens revealing, threatens it with the possibility that all revealing will be consumed in ordering, and that everything will present itself only in the unconcealedness of standing serve. This is what we talked about. Human activity can never directly counter this danger. So it's a fault to think that, oh, we can save the world, we can save, human achievement alone can never banish it. But human reflection can ponder the fact that all saving power must be of a higher essence than what is endangered, though at the same time kindred to it. So none of our sort of activity, now we need to save the world, it's not the way to relate to this danger. The way of relating, according to Heidegger, is to really enter into relationship with it, and to ponder it, and to think about it, and to meditate upon it. And perhaps this sounds strange, because like, why meditate when the world out there is burning? But in this deeper sense, there really is a shift in our attention from outward symptoms to sort of to deeper causes, and an invitation for us to kind of to really think about our way of being in the world, and our way of thinking, and our way of relating to ourselves and to each other. And I think these times, and I think this is what I'm also looking for with this expedition, is kind of like, okay, can we really try to challenge the assumptions? Can we really try to challenge our own preconceived notions of healing, of saving, of being, and of life in general? Can we really try to question? I guess that's the word. Not that I have the answers, and not that we have the answers, but being in this questioning relationship. And I think Bayo Akamalapa is so interesting to me at this moment, because this is what he's so good at, questioning the sort of rationality of capitalism, and of he had this, the other day I heard like this quote that like, think like, and this reminds me, and I think, oh, we need to think differently. And he says, like, thinking out of the box, that's exactly how the box likes to think. So anyway, I think this is almost with 3 slides left. So there was a time when it was not technology alone that bore the name techno. Once that revealing that brings forth truth into the splendor of radiant appearance, hearing was also called techne. So techne is not a new name. Technology is not something new. We always had technology in a way, using tools to build and to do something with. That's not something new. And in this sense, technology is definitely not the danger, but it's a way of like, how are we using technology, or how is technology using us, better put. So, and then Heidegger says, there's this old Greek way of being in the world and of disclosing, that also involves techne, but their way of being with technology was very different from our way of being with technology. So once there was a time when the bringing forth of the true into the beautiful was called techne, and the poesis of the fine art was also called techne. So there's a sort of like craftsmanship and artmanship, perhaps you could say, that that's also techne, and there's a sort of like the bringing forth, rather than standing before us as something representing, at this representational way, where we're relating to it as to being as something that that wants to be brought forth, and that we're bringing something forth from out of the depth. So in Greece, at the outset of the destiny of the West, the arts soared to the supreme height of the revealing granted them. They brought the presence of the gods, brought the dialogue of the divine and human destinings to radiance, and art was simply called techne. It was a single manifold revealing. So art was a way of revealing, of disclosing, and techne was that, those tools and that way, the craftsmanship that you brought forth this relationship with being, with the divine. And there you have the mundus imaginalis again, the dialogue of the divine and the human. That's exactly what Koban was talking about with the mundus imaginalis. And there's a sort of like a radiance to this dialogue. Things begin to shine as the flower I was speaking about it. Something is shining when we're in touch with this way of disclosing. And we can enter into this relationship through technique, through art, if we use it thoughtfully, if we use it meditatively. And I think why this is important to me is like, it's a different way of doing psychology, you could say, like, because, for example, with this course, you can say, okay, what do I get out of it? And, how, like, we can relate to the course and to ourselves through this, standing reserve, instrumentalized, calculative, or you could say, okay, if we stay with the playing, then we get into this artful, poetic relationship where we are sort of bringing something forth from out of the depth, and that's a very different way of relating to ourselves and to to the world. So there's a more playful, more artful, more poetic relationship to ourselves, instead of okay, how can we fix, how can we heal, how can we do it. So that would be the sort of like Heidegger's counteraction, you could say, to the modern enframing standing reserve. We need to get back into a more poetic relationship with the world and ourselves. And poetic, not in the sense of writing poetry necessarily, but poesis as it actually means bringing forth. It means creating. So how would that look in regard to ourselves, for example? That would be kind of like, okay, there's no right way that I need to be. There's nothing. There's no standard. That I need to live up to in regard to what it means to be a normal, functioning human being. But there's different ways that I can reveal my essence, that I can bring forth my essence in creative ways, you know. So being being in relationship, being open to the mystery, and from that place bringing something forth, expressing something. That would be the invitation. So just to mention, Heidegger is very fond of Hölderlin, the poet, and Hölderlin is the one who says this quote, "Where the danger is, grows to saving power." He also says, "Poetically, man dwells upon this earth." So that would be Heidegger sort of poetically dwelling on the earth, and that means to be in a relationship with the God. So last slide. Let's see here. Yeah. But because the essence of technology is nothing technological, essential affection upon technology and decisive confrontation with it must happen in a realm that is, on the one hand, akin to the essence of technology, and on the other, fundamentally different from it. So again, it's not about rejecting technology, but it's a different way of relating to it. And this is the realm of art. But certainly only if reflection on art for its part does not shut its eyes to the constellation of truth after which we are questioning. Thus questioning, we bear witness to the crisis that in our sheer preoccupation with technology, we do not yet experience the coming to presence of technology, and that in our sheer aesthetic mindedness, we no longer guard and preserve the coming to presence of art. So again, you know, when we say, you know, this is the realm of art and poetics, and so it's not about like consuming more art products, you know, from the industry of art. It's about entering a more artful relationship with ourselves that is creative and playful, and from where we can bring something forth that's strictly not coming from us, not at least from our subjective, but it's coming from this relationship to being. Okay, I talked a lot. I'm gonna stop here.